Hey everyone and welcome back on the channel. My name is Alex. In today's video we have a first impression preview of the New Balance Rebel V5, this shoe right here. I'll tell you everything about the numbers, the specs, the stats about the shoe. I'll also share a few very short feedback from my first run in this shoe. I'm coming back from injury, and although the run in this shoe was less painful than the runs I had in the previous weeks, it's still not perfect, so you have to take this preview with a grain of salt and wait for a full review here on the channel in a few weeks. This shoe will release on July 1st for €160, $140. I'll also give you some quick comparison elements between the Rebel V4 and the Rebel V5. This should allow you to understand what's changing and whether or not the V5 is for you, depending on how you enjoyed the V4. Let's start with the specs and mostly what is not changing, and that's the price point. The Rebel V4 was priced at $140, €160, and that is still the case for the Rebel V5, $140, €160. The price remains unchanged, and these days it's a good thing. What changes, however, is the stack height. And we're going up 5mm on the Rebel V5, coming from 30mm in the heel, 24 in the forefoot on the Rebel V4. We now have a whopping 35mm in the heel, 29 in the forefoot, still that 6mm drop, just like on the Rebel V4. I'll share with you in a second how that drop feels, because it definitely doesn't feel the same on the two shoes. But yeah, one thing for sure is that the stack height on the Rebel V5 has gone up, and so did the weight. The weight of this shoe in my size US 11 EU45 is now 244 grams, whereas it used to be 232 grams on the Rebel V4. So that's only a 12 gram or 0.4 ounce increase between the two shoes. And that's primarily coming from the increase in stack height on the Rebel V5. Now looking at the upper of this shoe, we still have a phantom fit upper that fits on the wider side of things, even in the regular D version. The length is true to size, and overall I would say it's a pretty good fit. It's not one that really wraps your foot very snugly. It's more a fit that is on the loose side of things, especially for a shoe that's meant to go, tempo, up tempo, threshold paces like the Rebel. Although we'll come back to that in the purpose of this shoe. But I believe that, yeah, it's one that's quite accommodating in terms of fit experience. And I don't know for sure, but I believe, like New Balance does on some of their styles, a wide version should be available for the Rebel as well. What changes with the V4 in terms of upper is mostly here in the collar area. There's a bit more padding compared to the V4, where your heel is sitting against, a bit more of a plush, kind of, more comfortable type of heel counter and heel collar in general. It's not too much, it's not too much padding, it's not overbuilt. It's just that small increase, incremental step compared to V4. The rest is very similar. We still have a semi-gusseted tongue, just like on the Rebel V4. The upper material feels very similar. I would say it's almost the same phantom fit upper material. And there's maybe a small change at the top of the tongue, where on my Rebel, as you can maybe see here, on my Rebel V4, sorry, the top of the tongue was starting to wear out, and this has been changed with a small reinforcement here on the tongue of the Rebel V5, which is appreciated. Durability is a key thing, especially when you're spending $140, €160 on a shoe. You want it to be durable. Speaking of durability, one of the key concerns about the Rebel V4 was how the compression of that midsole would affect its longevity, its durability long term. I feel like one of the key reasons why the Rebel V4 could not be appealing to some runners was that the midsole would compress fairly quickly, and you would lose that magical effect of the Rebel with this shoe. It was a fantastic midsole PIBA EVA blend. I think many people really enjoyed it for a variety of paces, a variety of training purposes. You could use this shoe. It was almost that perfect all-rounder. You could take it for easy sessions, but you could also pick up the pace with it. I feel like the Rebel V5 is now, so first of all, New Balance claims it's still a blended midsole. I would assume it's still that PIBA EVA blend, but I have no info confirming it. I would say that it feels softer. It feels, quite softer compared to the Rebel V4. You can't see, but below the table, I do have one of each on my feet. I did an A/B testing run outside after my first run in this shoe, and the V4 felt quite dull, quite firm, quite flat underfoot, whereas the V5 had much more plushness, smoothness, cushion as well, and quite a bit more bounce as well. It also felt like it was more angled, meaning it had more drop, more offset between the heel and the forefoot, feeling more like a 6mm drop when the Rebel V4 after 100 and something kilometers on it feels like a very flat shoe. Not necessarily a zero drop shoe, but a very flat shoe. How would I, see this shoe, the Rebel V5, fit in New Balance shoe lineup and in your rotation potentially? For me, this shoe going up in weight, going up in cushion, up in stack height, becomes more of that premium up-tempo shoe, whereas the Rebel V4 and the Rebel lineup until now has always been more geared towards faster paces and a shoe that kind of, would allow you to jog to the track and do your track workout, jog to your, friend's house and do a session together. I feel like V5 now is still very capable in terms of picking up the pace. I didn't do it yet, so I can't confirm, but that's how I feel about it. However, I feel like it's also becoming a bit more of that, gentle running, slower running type of shoe, where essentially it's losing the ability at the higher side of the spectrum, at faster paces, essentially, and it's gaining a bit more ability, capacity at slower paces. Going from that interval, threshold, tempo shoe to something more like a long run endurance and tempo pace. Threshold, yeah, maybe, but it's probably gonna show some limits. A bit faster because of how much more mushy and how much more how much softer, the midsole feels on this shoe. That's again a very first assessment of this shoe, and I will have to confirm, but based on the feelings I had with this shoe and the small comparison I did, I would see this shoe becoming more that sort of premium trainer, almost like it was replacing the SC trainer, but in a more, toned down, easygoing version of it. I hope it makes sense. I will also show you something quite interesting, and that's the width of the midsole. The Rebel V4 is very known for having a super wide midsole, especially here in the forefoot. And with that lower stack height, it was, for the softness of the midsole, it was one of the stable shoes in that sort of up-tempo category. Now, the Rebel V5 also comes with that super, super, super wide boat-like type of width here in the midfoot. But with the increase in softness, I feel like it's a bit less stable. Also with the increase of stack height, it feels a bit more wobbly in the heel, but that's again, based on slower paces and a first assessment only, so we'll have to confirm. A good thing, however, is when you look at the thickness of the rubber on the two shoes, the rubber compound on the Rebel V5, or the layer of rubber here, is definitely thicker. And that should also compensate for some of the durability issues that the Rebel V4 had with its outsole. Although on my shoe, the wear is not that bad, but I know some people experience quite some wear and tear on their outsole, on the Rebel V4. And yeah, that layer of outsole rubber seems to be quite thicker compared to the one of the Rebel V4. So yeah, like I said, $140, 160 euros for this shoe, releasing on July 1st. If you have any questions on this shoe, on whether or not it can fit in your rotation, let me know in the comments. I will try to give you an answer, but like I said, you should also expect a full review here in a few weeks, probably a comparison as well against the likes of the Evo SL and other shoes in that 140, 150, 160 euro category that can do many things, because this is definitely one of them. Thanks a lot for watching. Enjoy your run today, enjoy your ride, go beyond your limits, and let's link to the review of let's do SC Elite V5, the racing companion to this shoe. Thanks for watching.